All right. I think I'm hopefully live. At least that's what it says. Also, I think audio should be good. Let's wait for a couple of people to arrive in the stream. And let's try to turn off the active corners if possible. Can we do that? Is there anything like that here? Desktop. What is it called? Active dwell corners. Is it this? Accessibility? No. Dwell corners here. Nothing. Well, maybe in the top left, it's okay. Pick the one-off action to be performed after dwelling on a screen corner. Is that okay? No, it's still... Okay, that's something different. Okay, let's try not to do that. Because I always have to go into that corner to look at the chat. Robert is here. Hi. Good evening. Yeah. Analytics are broken, but if you can hear me, please say something in the chat. And if sound is okay, I will just start hacking away and giving a short introduction about what we are doing today. Okay, great. Thank you, Robert. So my voice is still a bit rough. I had a cold the past week. That's why today it's only tea. Yeah, what are we gonna do? We are... Oh, Matthias is here from Sweden. Hello, Matthias. What are we gonna do? We are coding today for the Commodore Pet. The Commodore Pet was Commodore's very first real computer. There was the Kim 1, obviously, but it was real full computer, one of the very first personal computers from 1977 originally. So here's the original model. I have a 3016 upgraded to a 3032, which looks basically like the 4032 here, albeit with a smaller monitor. This one is the one with the big monitor, and I have one with a 9-inch CRT. It belongs to the Pet 2001 series. It came originally with Basic 2.0, 16 kilobytes of RAM, which I upgraded to 32 with original DRAM. But there's also a Romulator in there to upgrade it to Basic 4.0, which came with the later Pets, because that's much more easy to work with when you're doing disk access and stuff. But I can turn a switch and revert it back to Basic 2.0. Why is this thing so interesting? It is one of the very first personal computers that was really mass market and stuff like that, and it's made from metal, as you can hear. It's right next over here to me. And it's interesting because I have a disk drive, a matching disk drive for this, which was actually for later models, but it's an amazing disk drive nevertheless. It's the Commodore 8050, huge beast, also made of metal with two large 5.25-inch drives. And each drive has 500 kilobytes storage per disk side. It's single-sided, so you can flip it around. So on 2 diskettes, you can store 2 megabytes, which was wild back in the day. And it's working. There's another one right behind me, which I bought for spares, but it's also working by now. So I've got 2 working disk drives, which is good. And what can you do with these? Well, the Pet couldn't do a lot. It was mainly used for business applications. They are very obscure business applications, a lot of different stuff. My machine came from a factory or something. It was really dusty and dirty inside, so they often were used for controlling machinery and stuff. Really, really business computers. But there's also other stuff that's doable on these, and which actually should not really be possible, because at most the Pet has 32 kilobytes of RAM. Yes, it says here 96 kilobytes with some expansions and bank switching, because the 6502 can only access 64 kilobytes, but it's only 32 kilobytes at a time, because the upper 32 kilobytes is reserved for ROM, basically. With some asterisks and side notes. For example, my Pet has 8 kilobyte of RAM in that area via the soft ROM cartridge. I have a video about that, which can be used by certain programs, so you can have 40 kilobytes. And what we want to do is we want to run old Infocom games like Zork on it. If you don't know what Infocom is, read the webpage. It was the first text adventures basically. This year's on a modern machine, of course. And I can just run it in the Vice emulator, because Vice can also, besides C64, it can also emulate the Pet very well. And for example, we can do a directory on emulated 8050. And there you see there's the Infocom interpreter called Z3 Pet that we'll be working on. And there are 3 different Zork games here. And that's also what I will show you, what the actual problem is. So we are gonna load the interpreter and run it, if we can make it run correctly. And I will hit the warp button here, because otherwise it takes ages. And there you go. That's Zork, one of the very first text adventure games. West of house, you're standing in an open field west of a white house with a boarded front door. There's a small mailbox here. Open mailbox. Then you have disk access, you can see that here. Oh, and actually this breaks down. Why? That's probably something we need to find out. Let's check if I use the correct... it's actually a good question why this is not working. Okay, I'm in true drive emulation. I'm emulating an 8050, and this should actually work. But Robert says the Z-machine that Infocom used was a well-designed virtual machine. Yeah, we might see a little bit of that. Yeah, besides the fact that this here is not working quite now, we'll ignore that for now. I will just reboot the machine. I doubt that we will get to where I want to be at the end of the live stream today, but we will have a poke around the source code of this thing, because I didn't write it. And as you notice, perhaps, the game just starts, basically, right? Not asking us anything, it just loads the story. And there are 3 stories here. And the thing that I like about the 8050 is you can basically pack a ton of games on one single disk. But since RAM is so limited and the Pet is actually hardly capable of running any Infocom games at all due to the small amount of RAM, you can only play smaller games. The larger games don't even run, because their resident size, the part of the story that has to be kept in RAM, is so big. It will load only older games or special games like those written with Punion form, modern games that is written with Punion form, will fit in memory. And there's a lot of swapping, basically. You have to load from disk all the time. Due to the fact that RAM is very limited, the author of this Infocom interpreter made it so that it will load the very first file that begins with Z3 space, and that is Z3 Zork 1, and it will never look at the other files. But what I want to have is, like, I can have a collection of Infocom games on one of those massive 8050 disks and have like 5, 6, 7 games on there, and store my save games on the second drive that's in this unit. But for that, I need a way to specify which story I want to load. Maybe at first it will be just like a line input where I have to put in the name of the game file. And maybe later we can even have a simple menu or something, which gives us a directory listing. We can pick a file, something like that. That's my goal. We're probably not getting there today. And the error that we're seeing here is probably also because I compiled or assembled the program incorrectly. But we'll get there eventually. I think at first we will have to make ourselves acquainted with the source code, because of course this is written in assembly language due to size constraints. The author, by the way, of this magnificent piece of software is okay, Robert says that seems doable for sure. I hope. The author was not interested in adding this feature. He said this is basically done. He only fixes bugs when he finds them. And I can totally understand him. He has other stuff that he wants to do. His name is Adalbert Kirk. I think he's German. I think in his real life he is or used to be a meteorologist or climate scientist, something like that. At least we talked a little bit about climate science and that he did some research there as a doctorate or professor, I don't know. But as a hobby, he codes for the Commodore Pet and similar systems and did this amazing thing. And the interpreter is really small, 28 blocks. 28 blocks is 28 by 255 roughly times 255. So 7 kilobytes roughly. That's tiny. That's really a minimal interpreter as far as it goes. Yeah, anyway. Let's look at this. The nickname of Adalbert is Bitshifter, so you will find him as Bitshifter on the forums. And the interpreter actually can run on a variety of 6502-based systems. The PET, the VIC-20, the C64, the C128, the Plus4, and the Apple. Robert says, could you place the menu code at the end of the code and have it be overwritten in RAM whenever a game loads? Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I think probably you would have the file name somewhere at the start, so that we lose as little memory as possible. And there's also a couple of things that we can save upon. We'll see that when we go through the code. For example, I already figured out that I think for disk access or something, forgetting the last active device number, I don't know, something like that. There was something, some code where for the C64, etc., there will be a load of an accumulator to pass a variable, and then you jump into the kernel, and the actual kernel function on the pad does the same or does a different load and overrides your load. That load was only needed for C64 and C128, etc. So we waste like 2 bytes or something every time we do this. So there's probably a couple of ways that we can squeeze the code even further. I don't want to make it totally unreadable and unportable, but Adalbert already said, yeah, you can just put an ifdef around it, or maybe the assembler also allows for macros, so we can put this little kernel call into a macro. And important thing, this assembly code requires Adalbert's own assembler, which is called BSA, a Bitshift assembler, because as I said, Bitshifter is his nickname. And there's also a little bit of documentation up here and show some stuff, arithmetic and logic operators. We'll probably have to look at that, relational operators. And there's also macros, you see. So we probably can wrap this thing that I just talked about when we encounter it into a macro and save on a couple of bytes, which we can reuse for the file name. So you can just compile the assembler with regular C compiler. It's just ANSI C. I also wrote a little make file, which I'll turn up the font on. Basically, this interpreter supports Z-machine level 3 and level 5, but there are very few version 5 games that will fit into the pad's memory, so usually you want to stick with version 3. That's what the V thing here is for. Adalbert used this script here, just a little shell script, but since we just need the pet version, I'm gonna use this stuff instead here. Only these two commands for building the version 5 and version 3 interpreter. So we can basically do something like make clean and then just do make, and it will assemble the source code and give us any errors if there are any, which aren't there at the moment because we didn't start hacking yet. The whole thing consists of two different files. One is called Zork ASM and the other one is called Z-include ASM. The Z-include is basically the Z-machine. That's all there is basically. There's a bunch of story header as it says, which is I think fixed in every story file for the Z-machine. Then there are some constants, and then there's the program counter loop, reads the next instruction byte from the Z program counter, read optional operand bytes, and call operator subroutine, which is fine. And then there's a ton of different operators which are implemented. Does the dpet equal 1 option definitely override the pet equals 0 option set in the code? Oh, good question. I guess. I would hope so. Otherwise his assembly script would not work very well. But we can ask Adalbert as well. He usually responds pretty quickly to my emails, so he's very helpful. But let's first get a little bit acquainted with the code, I would say. If it keeps crashing, maybe just set it to... Yeah, of course. I mean, that's probably what you do if you don't want to mess around with all this stuff. We can test this, actually. I can do something like dz v equals 3 Zork, and that should assemble that thing. And what did it call? It created indeed Z3 Pet, because that's 2018, that's right now. And to get it into the image, I actually have a DOS box running with 64 copy, because that's actually the best thing. But I think it's exactly the same size. So we have to delete this because we can't overwrite. And then we will copy that, switch to the pet, do another directory, do deload star, then run, and do the warp. And it does run. And let's do open mailbox. And there we go into the machine monitor. Not sure why. We'll figure it out. So that's definitely not the issue with the pet equals 1, I think. I think that's overridden by the command line. Use French character encoding. I don't think we need that. Use data file in Commodore REL format. Otherwise, that could actually be a problem. That could be our problem. Because we're here in PRG, so this should. I'm not sure how to create a sequential file by copying, because copying doesn't have an option to do that. I'm not sure about 64 copy how it does that. I can go into the there's I'm dir edit, and I can set this to sequential, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct. If that's just a byte that gets changed, or if it needs to be layout on the disk in a different way. One way to find out, I would say. Let's try this again. Or maybe better detach the disk image and reattach it. I think. I'm not sure if it gets updated. That's one way we should find out actually pretty soon, if changes actually reflect on the disk image. I mean, I could just put another file on there or rename something. Ismail says, hi, very intelligent. Okay, thank you. Let's load it again. Oh, we already see that there's a... okay, I remounted. That's fine. Okay, there are sequential files now. Let's see if this helps. The thing that this program has to do actually is all the dots that you're seeing here. It parses the whole Z story file to see where which opcodes are and stuff like that. It has to build some kind of index to be able to access the file in a random manner. So it builds basically a small table, I think, in memory. Osmo, the other 6502 based interpreter, doesn't do that, but it also doesn't support the Pet because they say it has too few RAM, not enough RAM. They don't do that. They write sectors directly onto the disk or blocks. They don't use the file system at all. Which would also be an issue because then you can't put multiple stories on a disk. So I do like the way that Adalbert did this. No, okay. But that could be, the issue could now be that just changing to a sequential file type is not enough, right? The question is, no, F11 doesn't work. That just... Okay, this is just for converting to a different image format. I'm not even sure that this is actually an issue. It's just my guess, but it is in the code, and I do remember that I put onto my real disks, I put these things as sequential files, which I do using the program CBM copy from OpenCBM. Maybe try look before open mailbox. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can try something different, of course, to see how it behaves. Look should, I mean, basically the first thing you see is a look, right? The room description is basically what you do when you type look. So, but we can try that again. It does a disk access, and that is actually working. Yes. We can try going south, and then we also crash. Interesting. Okay. The look works, but that's also the very first action that we're doing. So, well, let's not spend too much time on that, I would say. Let's continue on our journey through the code. There's a lot of defines, Commodore key codes, F keys. Those do not exist on the Pet, so we can ignore that. Commodore color codes. There's no color on the Pet. We can also ignore that. Display control codes. That's more interesting because the Pet and all the Commodore machines have special characters, and also they have a special encoding for when you write into the screen memory. But I think this is just the PETSCII encoding. Like tab is hex 9, backspace is 8, etc. Yeah, that should be fine. But we can currently, I think, more or less ignore that for now. Interpreter zero page variables occupy basic space. If pet ampersand equals $11 for pet. Okay, that's probably the start of the zero page variables that the interpreter uses or something. And the pet has stuff already there. There are a bunch of memory maps for the pet, both for BASIC 2.0 and BASIC 4.0 machines, and this here requires BASIC 4.0, I think, and we will concentrate on BASIC 4.0 because it's easy to upgrade your pet to version 4.0 if you're not on the very first 2001 original machine. I'm not sure if they can run BASIC 4, but all the later ones like mine can run BASIC 4, and that's, I think, something that you should do. So yeah, there is indeed 0D through 0F is the disk status descriptor, which they probably can't overwrite. And then, okay, 11 and onwards are integer value pointers for descriptor stack. That's probably basic stuff. Start of basic. Okay. Yeah, we will look into this memory map all the time because that's basically the API of the pet. There's a lot of memory values that have semantics that have different functions. There is different routines that you can jump into for the ROMs, for BASIC, for the DOS, for the machine language monitor, etc., etc. So that's that. Then we have, okay, Z-code, current code byte. I think these are the registers of the Z-machine, I think. So we can probably also ignore that, or parts, at least parts of that. The floppy block low and high, that's data that we require for disk access. Multi-purpose local variables, okay. Yeah, there's also the cache, as I said. There's a disk cache, because you have to access the disk so many times, it actually caches a couple of kilobytes. On my machine with... Oh, I know... No, I don't know. No, that's wrong. Because Edelbert put in support for my software extension. But that's auto-detect. It auto-detects if there is a software expansion. And I don't think that the pet that's emulated here has that. That's visible if we run this stuff. Stefan is here. Hi. Yeah, the cache is actually at 5600 hex. It does a tentative write at 900 hex. And if it can write there and read back two different values correctly, then it knows there's a RAM at that address. And it assumes that it's an 8 kilobyte soft ROM, which is what I installed and that got implemented on my demand, which gives us this whole space here from 5600 to 7FFF as extra space for the story. So you can load larger stories with this thing, which is a good thing. Good. So that's that stuff. Then there's system variables for the pet, for example. RAM 0 switching value for bank 01. Okay, that's for pets that support 96 kilobytes of RAM, which ours doesn't. That's how you can switch between the different RAM banks. The RAM disk start and end. There's also a possible RAM disk for the larger machines like the 1896 and the 8296. We don't have that. Jiffy clock, IO status, reverse. Blink switch, blink count, blink on. We don't care about that right now. That's all different zero-page variables, I think. We can probably look this up. Like $A7 is here. That's flash cursor. You can turn on and off the flash cursor. Yeah, blink switch. Makes sense. So we can ignore that. That's different on the Pet versus, for example, the C64, etc. Because there's also the variables here for the VIC-20, for example, the C64, the C128, all have different memory layouts. So that's the defined, the +4, and that's it. Kernel functions, if pet and then blah, 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 blah. Those are the kernel functions that the Pet supplies. The Pet doesn't have all the kernel functions that the other machines have. Most important, I think, is BS out, because that's basically like printing stuff. So that's important. Talk, listen, unlisten, and untalk are for the disk interface. That's for the IEEE 488. Because that works by doing, I think, depending on what you're doing. If you're receiving, you're listening. If you're sending data, you're talking. And you can also untalk and unlisten to mark that you end the connection, basically. Get in is probably for input. Makes sense. We mostly have to do get input and output, which is fine. So that's good. There are pet arrays. TT size. I have no idea what this is. That depends on the Z-machine version. For version 5, we have TT size hex 600, otherwise 400. I don't know. Something to do with the Z-machine, I guess. Yeah. I'm still not sure about the rel versus sequential file stuff. I need to figure out how to do that in 64 copy. Okay, C64 arrays, +4 arrays, RAM-ROM switching macros. Okay, that's for the C64 and the +4, because the Pet doesn't need that, because the ROM can't be banked out. But for the C64, you can disable the ROM and get more RAM access, which is nice, which gives you really a lot more RAM than the Pet has. At least in parts of the code where you don't need the ROM access. And then you can bank in the ROM again if you need to call like disk I/O. There's a print macro, and this is probably also at some point we would introduce a macro for what I talked earlier about. Okay, sys command. Okay. Start machine language. Okay, this is this is probably the start of the program. This is probably the tokenized version of line number.word 2024. This is probably the tokenized version of the sys command in BASIC, and then it uses this address basically for the different interpreter versions where it should start the machine code, I guess. There's also a logo in there that is, I think, not used on. It's VIC-20. it's BitShifter's logo. It's used on the VIC-20, not on our machine here, I think. Nice that he has some space for that. Data separators, etc. Cursor, windows, and screen. Okay, there's that stuff. But where's the file loading? File? Gibt's hier sowas? Is there anything? Store pages. Okay, there's stuff like that. Open rel file. That looks interesting. If C128 or Pet. Okay, yeah. We could even we could even save more program size by not supporting RAM bank switching, right? We could make a interpreter specially for the smaller Pets without any RAM bank switching, and that would make the code smaller, for example. But that's fine. it does call openrel file. Where does this come from? Look at this. Load accumulator game unit. This does the openrel star FA, 8. What's FA? Star accumulator FA? What is FA? Okay, FA is probably one of... Damn it. FA is first address disk unit. Okay, D4. We're Pet, yeah. D4 is current file device number. Okay, that actually loads openrel file. That loads... okay, this loads game unit. Game unit is probably also defined as... Is this defined somewhere? Oh, here it was. It's defined as 8. Okay. Game unit, save unit. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Okay, game unit is the IEC or IEEE device number of the device that is loading the where you load the story from. That is device number 8, which is fine. That's my actual drive. It would make sense if you could also choose which one that is. And here's what we're looking for. These are the story name. That's what it uses to load. And that's something that we need to change. I mean, what we can do, just for testing, is we can just write Zork2. Just for giggles. And we'll think about the other stuff here. Let's do make. And we will immediately see if this reflects in the disk image. Right? So that has changed. Yes, has it changed? Has it changed? It has changed. 837. Yeah, that makes sense. We copy that over there. We try to load that. Does it work? Seems so. What did it load? Zork2, the Wizard of Phobos. We found at least the file name, which is good. So we could make, if push comes to shove, we could just make an interpreter per game, basically, but that's lame, right? We don't want to do that. Does it also crash? The question is. Take lantern. Yeah, it also crashes. At least it's consistent. I still think it might be due to this sequential versus relative versus how we copied this stuff over. But let's see, 64 copy. How does it work? Features and shortcuts. Panel operations, it's such a complex program. Copy, move, rename files. Why can't I? Oh, okay. Copying files. Here we can copy files and directories. Blah, blah, blah. That's not so cool. So I can delete stuff, I think. I'm gonna delete these things and try to copy them in a different fashion. Let's do the following. Let's write copy Zork1 as Z3 Zork1 dot sequential. Let's see if sometimes it takes the whatever is written there and creates something like that. Will it do? No, it will copy as PRG still. How can I copy as a sequential or relative file? Maybe we can Google that. I could also use a different tool, but 64 copy seems so very nice. 64 copy, copy seg file. Let's try to force 64 copy on here. Trying to find the source code to BitShifter's Z-machine interpreter to see if it does the same thing for me. Oh, yeah, it is not online. I will put it online. I got the explicit... he explicitly gave me consent that I can put this online. And I will put it online. Do I have it here already? No. So we will put it online here. It's called Zork Pet, so I will keep the name Zork Pet. Infocom Z-machine interpreter for Commodore Pet. Origin by bit shifter. Let's call it like that. Repository initialize. No. I think we can do it like that. Let's do it like so. Let's go here, get init dot. There we have main. I'm watching your repositories in real time. We'll download it immediately. Yes, there you go. And you also need the assembler. I will make a repository for that as well. And we will put in useful stuff here first. Makefile and the assembly files are needed. I will also put in Zork. I think no one will complain about that. Zork can be found everywhere. Initial commit. Oh no, I have to add the. Oh no, I can just do it like that. Okay. Yes. Does it work? Yes, we're there. Now let's also create another repository for the BSA. BSA. BitShifters 6502 assembler. Let's add that as well. Let's go here and get init. Oh, we already have. I think that's already available, but I'll put it here as well. It's a mode already. Okay, let's call it root 42. I did find the assembler here. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. You found the assembler. I will put it there anyway. Git push root 42 master. Then we also have a copy here. If Adalbert's copy goes away, there's no harm done. Okay, we have both repositories online, so you can play also at home if you want. Question is, can we get C64 copy to do what I wanted to do, basically? That is the question, actually. Is there anything on the shift entries? Combine, split, strings, configure, Alt F6. Copy move files. Files, copy, rename. Change label on disk. Are you coding Quake? No, we're not coding Quake. We are coding Zork for the Commodore Pet, a computer which is older than I am, which is a good thing. Robert says was able to assemble it successfully. No setting up the emulator, etc. Yes. Good luck. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe I will do this differently. I think we can also try to do this via C1541. We have that. That's good. What is it called? Zork Pet D80. So we have this here. James says, I wonder if a live stream can show porn. I think you maybe want to change what you're saying. Otherwise, we might have to mute you. Anyway. Okay. Robert was quicker than I was, that I could click. Okay, let's continue. Let's see. Write source destination. How do we do this with C1541? C1541, create copy sequential file. And copy sequential files, add (s). Okay, that's how it works. But how does it work? Okay, with write probably, I guess. I think it's right. Source destination. Write source from the file system to destination on a disk image. Okay, yeah. The file name is zork1.z3. Write. Yeah, there's also a Wolfenstein thing on the pad. Quite interesting actually, but not what we're going to do today. Zork1.z3, and we want to write it to Z3 space Zork1, S. Did it work? That did work. Let's put the others here as well, just to make sure that we did it correctly. Okay, this is looking good. Let's try again. Probably okay, but I'm not trusting this. I'm gonna detach the disk image and reattach it real quick. And deload. This is really emulating it quite correctly and swallowing quite a few things. Graphics on a pet without the Stardust extra card? Well, it uses Petsky. With Petsky we have block characters and straight lines. So it doesn't look very great, but it does look kind of like something. And but that's going into a different area. There is a new demo from, I think, Genesis Project, where even on my TTL-based pet, you can do bitmap stuff. Oh goodness. I think it is time. It is time for bam. Okay. Let's continue. Okay, there we go. Oh, we are still loading. We are still loading Zork 2, which is fine. Which is fine. And take Lantern was what killed us. No, okay, that's not the issue. Okay, too bad. That's not the issue. There's probably another setting that I'm missing. I will have to write Albert after the stream. But let's concentrate on what we do have and what we can do. We have found the story name, which is good. We can tweak it to load a different story. Where is actually... okay. Here it's defined. rel equals 0. And we could compile with drel equals 1. And it would compile for that. But we have sequential files now. Totally fine. Z3 space Zork here. Story signature 5813. So that's the story name. Where is it used? It is used here. Is story. Check if file name begins with correct prefix. Okay. Okay, this is a sub, if not rel. Yeah, okay. Okay, this is just testing if the file name that it found is matching, I guess. So there's probably a call to is story. Find story file. Yeah, this looks perfect. Basically, this is the code that looks for the first story file that matches. It makes this call to get directory. Loads #2 that is like a memory space, right? Or is this like the literal 2? I always forget. The hash means this is a literal, right? This is a literal. Okay, so it loads 2 into the accumulator, stores the accumulator in LV0, file name position. Okay. Loads the accumulator with 8, stores the accumulator in LV1. Okay. Okay, I don't quite understand this yet. What the magic 2 and 8 are for. This has to do with the getDir function, right? Identify disk, next sector, load y2, jump subroutine AC pointer. That's probably a kernel routine or something. Oh goodness, here's my issue with the 6502 assembly. Okay, anyway. Okay, this basically iterates over all the file names, I guess, in the directory. And this story will set the whatever flag, so that branch equal will jump to the end of the function and return subfunction will be called. If this is a story. if it is matching Z3 space, or in our case Z3 space Zork 2. And if not, it will decrement LV1, which is some variable. And if that hasn't reached 0, it will jump here. So this is basically just a counter, I think. LV1 is probably the number of files that we got. So basically what we have to do, if we at first just want to have like an input, we will have to replace find story file with a function that reads from the keyboard, which we can already do. There's stuff for that, and stores that in our I don't know, variable, which is somewhere. That would be interesting. What is the story file name, the actual one? List entry. Is this? That's probably list entry will probably give us the name, right? File name position 0 equals deleted. Start rec start sector. File name here. Dir buff maybe. Store accumulator file name. That could. Is it like this? File name. Here. If not rel, file name equals z stack low, and dir buff equals z stack high. What? I have no idea, but I think this should be what we're looking for. Same goes here for the other things. So file name definitely has a file name is definitely the name that they're using. The question is it also used for opening? Probably. I mean, you need to pass the file name. Luckily, you will understand it in the end. Z-stack is part of the Z-machine internals. They're saying the Infocom file name for the data is in the code, I think. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Not quite following yet. Like a Z-machine program can consist of multiple files. Does it actually? At least all the story files I know are always. I haven't seen an Infocom game with more than one story file actually. Okay, never mind. I think what we can definitely say is list entry definitely fetches the file name, right? Okay, yeah, of course. This here copies the this copies the file name into file name, right? Because it loads the accumulator from dirbuff plus y, compares for shifted blank, whatever that is. Okay, branch not equal list entry 02, skips that, otherwise it loads just a blank. Interesting, okay. Or is it? I'm a bit confused. Okay, there's some magic going on with the space. There's probably an issue with the space in the directory buffer, and what you actually need to feed as the file name, I guess. And this then it stores the accumulator, which is the name of the file, into file name plus X. We are iterating over the file name buffer and filling it slowly with the entry of the directory, which is fine. Then it increments X and compares X with 16, because the file name can be 16 at most. Which in the end I also want to change. Maybe because on the Pet you can actually, if you have like the 8050, you can actually write something like 0:Z3 Pet, which will load from the first drive of the unit. And you can also, of course, write 1:Z3 Pet to load stuff from the second drive in the unit. So in theory, we could also tell the interpreter to not use drive 0, but drive 1, basically. But that is for future, because then this might have to be changed at some other places as well. That might complicate things. So I will leave this for now. I want this feature definitely for saving games, because I want to have one drive with the games files and one drive with save games, basically. That you have a special disk for just saving the games. That would be neat. Okay. But it's definitely that we want to replace this whole list entry and file name construction by our input function, where we can just input a file name. The question is, where was this called? Find story file, exactly. And we will have the file name in the file name variable at the end, because it will do list entry fills file name, and isStory determines if the file name matches or not. If it matches, then our variable file name has the actual file name in there. Right, okay. How does this work? Where is it called? It is called... Okay. Here, open buffer. This opens a channel to the drive, I guess. Oh, it's not defined in here. Where could it be defined? Open buffer. It's in the include, obviously, because that's the only other file that we have. Open buffer. Okay. Load accumulator with game unit. That's the drive 8, which in the future should also be, you should be able to change that. Then it stores that in the FA0 page variable, which is fine. Then it goes to listen mode, which is a kernel function, which listens on the bus, loads the accumulator with hex F8, jumps subroutine to second, not sure what kernel function that is, loads the accumulator with a hash, CI out, and then unlisten. Okay, this basically does open hash on device 8. That's probably a drive command. And I wish I knew that better. But okay, it basically opens probably a connection to the drive, and close buffer closes this connection. So we can keep talking to the drive by doing listen, obviously, and unlisten, and in between we can talk to the drive. Interesting that we don't talk, but we listen. Well, okay. Final dialogue. Okay, this is okay. But find story file. That would be what we have to change. Basically, we need something like JSR input story file or something, right? That would be what we need to code, I would say. This will be interesting. Hello, soul sister, from the other room, down the corridor. Are there still people in here? I guess so. I hope. It's not reacting to this. Okay, yeah. There are quite a bunch of people. That's very nice. But not so many talking, which is also fine. So we need to code something like input story file. I'm gonna go to find story file and put that right in front, just so that we do have something like that. Input story file. Okay, I have to, at some point I will swear at Emacs for indenting stuff in a way that I don't want it to, but for now I will just live with it. I think. Ja, bitte.
Hello from this room.
Well,
Hello.
there we go.
Goodbye.
And goodbye. Okay. Hello and goodbye. Exactly. So, okay, we need to do something and we need to do RTS. That I already know. The question is, how do we do this? There's probably read block. Is there something for input? Do we have something input? Parse input. No, this is probably not what I want. Get in. Get in is definitely used. Question is, how does get in work? Get in is, let's look it up. Get in on the pad is FFE4. Let's look at this here. FFE4. Get from keyboard. Would be nice to have a bit more of an explanation. We can look that up in the... Oh, that was already correct, right? FFE4. Get from keyboard. System input buffer. Okay. Input from screen or keyboard. I would argue that I lost track, but this would be a lie because I never was on track with assembler. Yeah, same here. I know almost as much as you do. Maybe a little bit more, but not much. Okay, that FFE4 just does a F205. It's just a redirect somewhere else, which makes sense. But the same of the day. Well, sorry, excuse me, I still have a bit of a cold, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, and I need to turn on a light because it's getting quite dark in here. Oh, that's better. I would need to know how to... I mean, I can call get in, right? I can basically input story file. What we can definitely do is we can do something like jump subroutine get in. then it will read from keyboard and do something, right? Robert says, you're doing better than me. I haven't got my disk image working yet, and I just get no Z3 story when I run it. Yeah, check the directory, and it has to be called Z3 space something. Actually, it could just be Z3 space because it only compares for that. If I didn't hardcode the Zork 2, did you? Oh, did I upload the version with the Zork 2 hardcoded? Then you might have an issue. That might actually be the case. So you have to put Z3 Zork 2 on there. If you haven't. You did with a hard-coded one. I've been trying to remember how it's supposed to be. Okay, it has to be... You can just look here. Z3 Zork 2. That should work. And it doesn't matter which game it is. It just has to be called Z3 Zork 2. It can be... I mean, you have Zork 2 in there. I uploaded it as well. Let's try with this. Let's try with input story file. This should stop the okay, that's fine. That should stop the loading and wait for an input, and then it should crash more or less. I would say. Let's copy. What do I want to copy? Ah, of course, this here. Okay, you can't overwrite. I don't know why you can't overwrite. That's a bit annoying. Okay, let's go back here. Deload. Not being able to overwrite is really annoying. Yeah, it is. It is. But that's very in line, because you can't do that on the pad either. You have to run Scratch in Basic 4 to delete the file first. And it does no Z3 story. And reboots. Okay. And now it's empty. It calls get in, but doesn't read anything actually. Commodore Pet read input in assembly. Let's see. Keyboard reading, read pet keyboard in read line from keyboard in assembly. Something like that. Maybe here. Ah, oh, nice Mandelbrot program. You can just use jump subroutine FFE4. You can read the keyboard register. We don't do that. Yeah, that's basically what we did. But it didn't do anything, right? It didn't wait for us to get anything here. Oh, cool. Robert managed to get it running and to crashing. Yeah, I will talk to Adelbert about this. There's probably a define or something that I forgot that makes this thing crash. I do remember that on the 8050 there was some issue and that it might be related to that. But on the other hand, maybe not, because we can load the story file properly. I have to talk to him. He would probably know what's going on. But what I'm interested in is, why does the jump subroutine get in not do anything? I would assume that it waits for us to press return at least. Is there anything here? No, here is nothing. Do we have reading the keyboard? Lesson 19. Look, here is 652 assembly programming for... I should have read that before, obviously. Here it said something. FFE4. Read character. Oh, that's only one. Is it only one? Do we need to do this in a loop or something? Hello world, char block clipping, keypad reading on the Commodore. Key reading. Let's look at this. I mean, we can always also look into the Oscar 64 compiler, which I used, which is a C compiler, but it has the source code and it's very readable. And it has functions for scanf or get character or get line or something. And we can probably copy what they are doing as assembly. As I said, I have to start really from scratch here. On MS-DOS, you would have an interrupt that you can call that actually reads a whole line. Does it have a whole line? Probably also only has get line. So similar problem. We probably have to do like a... But I would assume that we have a read line somewhere in here that we could use. The question is what is the name of the function? Nothing that I probably would figure out. Simulating a joystick. This is a very weird web page. That is very, very, very annoying. And it doesn't make much sense to me at the moment. Yeah, let's maybe look into the Oscar 64 compiler and have a look at their thing. This is the compiler, but we want the probably something like console input output, maybe. There's stuff for the CBM Pet, and it uses also the basic input and output functions. And this will be used by other functions. So we will look at that and try. Oh, sorry. That was a bit stupid. Let's go here. Let's go to Oscar 64. Do a something like. I think that's fine. It's used in console I/O actually. Purely right at the end of the file at 303. Come on. Okay, so it has functions for. Okay, it definitely only reads in one thing at a time, but it should stop. It should stop and read in a character. No, it does a loop. You have to loop. While there's no character input, you jump to BSN and store the accumulator in wherever you want it to be. And then it echoes it out. I fixed the bug where you can't open the mailbox. What did you do, Robert? What did you do? Zinc ASM, okay. Let's go to, let's fix this. Let's go find story file and do this. Comment out the break. Oh, he breaks into the monitor because he was okay. Yeah, I think we can throw this away, because the thing is, Edelbert told me the version I had building was even had debug output enabled. He's currently porting this to a different computer system, or using this as a starting point, because he's using a weird, what did he say, Sparrow 9 computer? Sparrow 9 computer. That's what he's porting it to. Atari Sparrow? Could it be? I think that's what he wrote. I don't know. He said he's porting it. Maybe I misremember what it was called. But that's why he had probably this break instruction in there. That makes so much more sense. Oh, we're in the wrong directory. Let's remake this. That's much better. Let's go to DOSBox. We lost 1 byte. It was 1 byte instruction. And we can't overwrite. I will learn this eventually. And we will load Zork 2, obviously. That's all garbage. Okay, here we go. Take lantern. And there we just load so much. Yeah, examine it. It works. It works. The lamp is turned off. Good. It probably even would have worked with the PRG story files. It probably doesn't matter. Probably only the REL files are different. So, who cares? But we have something to implement here. We have to implement input story file. So we will basically have to do something like, the question is, do we have something like this already? The new line. Is this doing what we want? Show status, the upper side. Yeah, it's not quite doing what we want, right? It is probably reading, but probably only for the Z-machine. Get character. Get a character from the keyboard. That sounds useful. That sounds useful. There is get line x1. That sounds useful. We probably can use that. Anything else? It's used in get line. It's only used in get line x1. So that's got line also sounds nice. Get line from keyboard with preset text. Okay, this is basically probably what we want, because we can say default name is Z3 Zork 2, and then we can edit this, I guess. Where does it store that, and where does it get the preset text from? Okay, stores the X and Y register in X1 low and high, loads Y with 0, loads accumulator with X1L plus Y. Why that? Because that's 0. So accumulator characters. Okay. Get character and get line are used in the Z-machine code 2 and zinc as in, so don't edit those. No, I won't edit those, of course not. I want to use it. I want to know where it stores whatever it reads in. I don't know. Get character is called, and that's probably Get character stores it in. Oh, this is nasty because there's a lot of if and else due to the pet versus rest of the world. This does the jump get in. And if the zero flag is set, we loop because then no key was hit. Otherwise, a key was hit. We compare to return. If it's return, then we go to get 40. Get character 40 down here somewhere. Okay, there. Then we push the character onto the stack. Okay, it reads it onto the stack. That makes sense, right? Etc, etc, etc. So basically it reads onto the stack, I would say. Could it be, because it's called x1, that it reads into a buffer? It's the parameter register. I think those are probably registers of the Z-machine, right? Which we could reuse here at the moment, which is fine. Infocom Z-machine registers. Do we have something like that? The memory map. Does it have something? Does it have registers? Would be nice to know. Does it have registers? And if so, what are they called? Oh, this is no good. Annoying. But definitely I think this is being used in some way, right? No. Got line here. Here we are. The question is, what is it doing with x1 low and x1 high? Those are obviously two parts of a 16-bit word, right? And I think the syntax here is read from memory address that is in x1l plus y and read that into a. And that is how many characters are left, maximum edit length, for some reason. And that's what we got in the X register for got line. The color we don't care about. We don't care about the machine greater than 3. Y is initialized with literal 0. Then we increment y for whatever reason. We load the accumulator with x1l and then y. Okay. We decrement y, compare the accumulator, so whatever we loaded from this memory address, with space. Compare sets the carry flag, or clears, this is probably branch clear carry, I guess. Is it? Is it? BCC. BCC. Branch if carry clear, okay. If the carry flag is clear, then add the relative displacement to the program counter, yeah, of course. And compares, clears the carry if the accumulator is greater or equal to m. Okay. And that means it is space or greater. Now we have to look into the Petsky table. That's probably if it's a printable character, right? Is this correct? Oh, this is stupid. Petsky. What kind of stupid character table is this? Suhas, hi. I will explain in a second. Space is 32. Okay, that's basically all the printable characters. If you press the printable character, it's fine. Okay, for everyone joining late, and I will do a bit longer, but not terribly much longer. For everyone who joined late, we are hacking on an Infocom game interpreter for the Commodore Pet. The Infocom games were very early text adventures, you can see here in 1981, etc., which is adventure games, like you explore a world, you solve puzzles, but everything in text, because 50 years back, 45 years back, they didn't have much graphics, so you had to do it in text. You have to imagine you write English sentences. You can do stuff like go north or something, if you can. Interact with your world. And the Commodore Pet is the machine that's sitting right next to me here, but this is an emulated Pet, very old machine with very limited memory, only 32 kilobytes, which we need. The original one had 4 or 8 kilobytes, but we need 32 kilobytes. And a magnificent person named Adelbert Kirk wrote this interpreter. However, I want to improve on it, and I can't code, at least not this stuff. So we're learning here as we go. And the first thing that I want to improve is that I can pick which story the interpreter will play. Because, I will reboot this so that everybody who didn't get that, if we look at the disk that the emulated Pet here has, there's the interpreter, it's called Z3 Pet, and there are 3 game files, Z3 Zork 1, 2, 3, which are the Zork games 1, Zork 2, and Zork 3. And right now, the interpreter will pick the first game that it finds that starts with the letters Z3 space. So it will always load Zork 1. We already identified where it does that, and we forced it to always load Zork 2. But the next step will be that we code an input routine in assembly language, and I only can do IBM PC 8086 assembly, and this is 6502 assembly, so completely different. I once made 16-bit computer. I feel your pain. Okay, yeah, exactly. And I want to code a 6502 assembly routine that reads from the keyboard, and I can type in Z3, Zork 2, or Zork 3, or whatever. That will be my first improvement on this particular interpreter. And we already found a subroutine called gotline, which probably does the correct thing, reading in from the keyboard and doing all kinds of stuff. The question is, how do we have to call it? That I don't quite understand yet. Look at this. Unit buff. We have to... Oh, that's pretty nice. We probably can put the file name in there. So, input story file. We probably want to call gotline. And we probably want to do something like loadex file name. What was it called? Was it called file name or something? Yes. Yes, it is called something like that. And it should hopefully read into file name the file name. Maybe that's it? I don't think so. No errors. That's good. That would be a success. Oh my god. So now we will copy this into the emulator. We increased the size by 4 bytes. We have to squeeze down the file size at the end of this project. But I guess there will be more live streams. Directory. Okay. Deload star and run. Oh! Well, that was unexpected. Because of this. Maybe. That was definitely incorrect. So I loaded X twice and didn't initialize Y. That's a bad thing, obviously. Not sure this is actually a good idea because I think file name would have to point to something, I guess. GetLine expects an existing string to edit. GetLine x1 is a new string, I think, which is fine. We have the z3 space Zork2 story name. We could edit story name, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We could edit story name, basically. I believe the first byte of the string is the length. Interesting. So, this would be something like Pascal style strings. Okay. We could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8. 08, right? That should work, I hope. Does it work? Does he support backslash notation? Does it work? No errors, okay. But then we would have to... The thing is, it does want to use file name, right? And file name is a pointer. You need a different pointer later to read it off by 1. Where did you get that? So what we definitely... So the thing is, where does it open the file? The story. List entry. So let's see how it opens the story. It has to find story, find a story, exactly. How does it determine the restart? Okay, where does it open the story? At some point it has to open the file. Where does it do that? It does the jump Z restart. There's a ton of font stuff that I don't care about. Oh, goodness. I wonder, Robert, when, I mean, the Z restart is doing the find story file. And we're calling input story file now. But the question is, where does it open the file? Because load first block to Z header. That is the very first thing that happens here. Load pages in the one. Load page. I think load page is here. But how does it know which file to load this sector from? So Robert says what it does is get a directory listing which includes file names and some kind of ID numbers, like sector numbers or whatever, and then it checks which one matches. Yeah, I think we have to read a bit about the BAM, which is the block allocation map on Commodore machines. So this is Emacs actually that I use for editing. But you could use the existing code and trick it. Could I? Yeah, I mean, all I need to do is change. Yeah, of course, I can input and then find the file. Of course, yeah, of course. Find story file. We don't disable that. We just input and then find. Simple as that. And which means we only have to edit the existing string, which is not file name, but what was it? Z3 space story name it was, right. And I hope that this \08 works. File name, input, story file, story name. It works so far. I'm not quite convinced that it will work like this. Oh, program is growing in size. This is fine. Oh, look at that. Not quite perfect. It says 8Z3 Zork2, but we can edit this and write Z3. Oh, I can't input numbers. Oh, no, it's not the problem. Okay, there's an issue. I can only... So now you just need to move the length byte before your other stuff, but it's getting there. Yeah, probably. And I think the 08 wasn't interpreted correctly that we had there. I think that is not how the assembler works here. 08. Can we do it like so? Would that work? Eight comma your string. Yeah, we can try that. If that works. I think that's nicer, right? No errors. So far so good. Delete. We are almost there of having actually in success. The got shrunk by 1 byte, which makes sense because we deleted 1 byte. That's very nice. Let's reload. Deload star. Run. Okay, this is looking better. Let's load Zork 3. Ah! Now you need 2 pointers, one to start to the start of the editable string, including the length, and 1 to the start of the file name, 1 byte later. Why? I don't get that actually. I wanna test something. I just wanna copy this, and I'm simply gonna call this Zork 3 because you need to pass it to loading. Okay, let me try one thing. Let me try one more with this here, just because I wanted to make sure that the space isn't a problem, because there was a special handling for spaces. Just to check this. Okay, definitely doesn't work. Okay, now we try your thing. So you're saying, okay, editable name byte, why byte 0? Why not 8? Because it's 8 bytes long. Editable story name byte 0 or 8 or whatever. Okay, let's take 8. Let's take 8 and story name. But what do I have to pass to the got line? The editable or here it is. Input length. Okay, here we got it. Okay, now I understand it. Okay. Unit buff is length 2. Oh, it will be okay, yeah. And the unit text is 08. Okay, totally makes sense. So the canonical name would be story name buff, story name text. Story name, let's call it story name buff and story name text. And we pass the buff. Okay, got it. I keep this as having 16. Yeah, that's 16 characters. As having 16 characters because people may want to input more. So I could also put in 16 here, so you can input at most 16 characters. The question is, '16 will include the spaces at the end. Yeah, that's an issue. Let's first try with a short. Let's try to make something actually work. Okay, story name. Oh yeah, of course I can't call it. Let's keep it as story name. Got line. No. Story name. Where's our input? Story file. Story name buff. Story name buff. I won't call it text right away. What did I do wrong? What did I kill here? Dot fill. Okay, there's an empty. We can also do this trick. Okay. We can do that. It fills it up with, okay. So 0. Maybe we have to do it like that. Comma 0. Input length is 20. Let's do it like that. It already is possible to input longer file names, which is good. Okay, thank you for answering that, Robert. Story name, we copied this from the file buffer, which is nice. Story name buffer is 20, let's say. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And fill. We have the same here, right? So we'll do 12 zeros at the end. Let's do Zork 1 just for... And we still have a problem here. Story name buff is undefined. Why is this undefined? Why does it not know about this? Because it comes at the end? Capital letter? No, story name buff. Story name buff. This is the same. That's not it. No. Nope. Just for checking. That works. Interesting. I will just copy it, you know. Story name buff. Maybe the name is too long? I don't think so. I don't think so. That would be very unfortunate. Interesting. So file buff works. I can use file buff, but not the other one. Glorious Cow, hi. Glorious Cow is working on a much more complicated project than this, building a 186 Arduino something contraption. Follow him on Mastodon, please. It's very interesting. As nbuff or something. Yeah, I don't think that's the issues, but I will try. Who knows if the assembler here is a bit more limited. Oh yeah, of course. In the Z5 we didn't. Sorry. I think that was all okay, but I will just simply comment this out for now. This will be in both versions of the interpreter. And I will try with story name once more, because I think that's fine. I think that was just the Z5 thing. Lakeside Tinker Garage. Hey ho, Space Pilot in the house. Hey, Space Pilot. Yeah, I will. Oh god, I have to stop this in 5 minutes. But 5 more minutes, and everybody who missed the stream, you can go and rewatch it, of course. And there will be a follow-up for sure, because I think we're very close to having at least the first feature. Yes, no errors. Short deadlines are always the best ones. And I'm gonna... Oh, it's getting so big. We have to do some code crunching the next time. So the goal here is that we can input an arbitrary story name. Okay, it's asking for Z3 Zork 1. I'm gonna load Zork 3. Oh, so close. So close. It could have been the wrong file type, so I'm gonna go easy and use one of the sec files. Let's do Zork2. No, also doesn't work. Ooh. Okay, that's not it. Line. Return to subroutine. Return. It's very close. It's very close. Yes. Even a text adventure can be hard. Oh, they can be very hard indeed. Find story file. It would be nice if we could print. Can we print what we have in there? The question is, what does find story file do now? It should it should be looking at file name. It should be comparing to story name. The problem might be in here. The problem could be in here that... Okay, this is loading story name -1. Story name -1 will be that should be our length of the string, right? I have to look at the original code. Before, story name was just a string with no length. It's good to see other people struggle with assembly language. Yeah, the problem is I don't speak 6502. I'm learning as I go. I mean, right now we're doing not that much assembly, more like massaging the data that's in there. But anyway, we are very close. I think so. But I think there is still some kind of issue. The is story is probably failing. The question is why? This loads X with, and now I have to look up in the assembler. There must be somewhere a question mark. Does it have? What does the question mark do? I want to know what the question mark does. So hash question story name. What does that even do? It doesn't even get mentioned in the assembler. This is one. Maybe this is the magic, because it doesn't have the. This must be the string length. I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say we need to load story name buff right? Because that is our length, correct? And we have to write it like this, correct? This will load the value. Didn't do that before though. My guess is that hash question mark is some kind of shortcut for get the string length of story name. Right? So is this the right way to write it? No, that doesn't work. Immediate value out of range. No, this is, I think this is this correct? Story name buff, or will this load the address of story name buff? How do I load? No, this is basically taking what's inside of story name buff, right? No errors. I think this could be the thing. How about for now hard coded to some length, like put an 8 in there or something? Then you can see if the rest works. Yeah, of course. But maybe it works like this. If I fail with this try, then we will hard code the length. Three, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, okay. Let's try with a hard-coded 8. LDX hash 8. We will compare the first 8 characters. We will compare the first 8 characters. Okay, we saved 1 byte again. I'm already losing my concentration here. Switching to C64 mode. That works. It's only a matter of syntax now to get it right. Okay. Now we only have to get this here right. I would have thought that story name buff loads whatever is in that variable. Isn't that correct? Because like if I write store accumulator in chain track, I write to this variable. Chain track is a variable, for example, and it's loading the accumulator from the variable chain track. That should work, but maybe is story here it is. Maybe this needs to be -1 because maybe it's no that can't. Yeah. Let's try, I'm gonna decrement X for testing. Maybe there's an off by 1 error that it compares like the 0 character at the end or something. I'm not quite sure. But we are so close. We are so close. Where's the pet? Here. LDA would be what you'd want, probably. Doesn't work. No, not LDA. I want LDX. Because this is, we need to have the length of the, or does it work with? It should work, right? I can also do LDY, LV0. Question is, what is in story name buff after the edit? That would be interesting. I think we will save this for the next stream because it's already after 10. I've been streaming for more than 2 hours now. But I think we are super close. So the idea was to get this interpreter to read from the keyboard, which works, and to load the file that we input, which almost works. If we hard code the file length, it works. So we're probably doing something almost correct. The question is, does story name buff have the correct length in there or not? My hope would be that this is the case. It's probably, maybe we should do a break here and then look into the machine memory actually. Pet, Zork Pet. There is a listing here. Perfect. There is all the memory values, I think. So there should be story name buff. This is the assembly listing with the opcodes. So basically I would say 7021 is probably, yeah, that's correct. Okay, 7021 is story name buff. And it compares both file name and story name starting from that. So even the length has to match. That's weird. That's actually a bit... It can't be true, right? So I think this is definitely the issue that we're having. You say it walks backwards. Well, let's see. But anyway, yeah, it counts down, but I think it moves forwards. It looks at the prefix, but it counts down. I think this is something that we can look at in the next stream. I think we're very successful today. Even though we're not quite there yet, we can input something and we can almost load the correct story file. So Neonam, hello. We're just closing the stream, but thank you for joining. Make sure to rewatch this in the once it's up on YouTube, because I think I learned a lot today. I hope you did too, and there will be a next stream for sure. This is not over by far yet. Julien is also here. Yeah, just rewatch the stream. You could do it. And yeah, thank you, Robert. You are real good co-pilot, basically. Very helpful. Yeah, for everyone who joined late, just go and watch it. There will be another stream at some point in the next weeks, hopefully sooner than later. And we will get this thing to work correctly with custom file names. And maybe later we will even code a little menu for selecting the story. Something like that will be in the future, I would say. And we will also crunch the code a little bit. We will remove stuff that is not interesting to the pet, so that we will have the smallest amount of code possible for the interpreter, making it more efficient, faster, and especially give more memory to the story. That's the most limiting factor here. But that's it. I've already talked way too much. Thank you for joining, and see you in the next video or the next stream. You can follow me on Mastodon. You don't even have to subscribe. I'm on chaos.social/root42. I think. Probably not. Where can you find me there? Something like that. What is it? @root42. Okay. @root42. I totally forget. And I post stuff like the games that we're playing, music I'm listening to, other stuff. And of course, you can interact there. If you want to chat there, you have to get an account on mastodon.social or whatever floats your boat. And you can connect. Maybe commit your changes so far to your repository. Yes, I will make a feature branch and commit all the stuff. And yeah, that's it. See you in the next stream. Bye.